Go ahead. All right, as most of you can see right now, this is what's going on in my life. Disability, we look at disability, we see people on walkers. We see people with canes, crutches, wheelchairs. Some people who are paralyzed or can't see, or a lot of other things that we can see. This right here is what we call a blind disability. I don't know how many times in my life I've been told when I reach out to certain people, or I'm having a bad day, and people say, "Oh, why are you having a bad day?" And I can only explain so much, because when you get into my kind of disability, people don't see it and they don't get it. So when I reach out and say, you know what, I have obsessive compulsive disorder and I'm just having a bad day, you wouldn't believe the amount of times to my face I've been told, "Oh, you don't look like you have anything wrong with you." Sucks. Sorry. So when Sharon asked for speakers, I thought, who better? So I'm going to give you a couple facts in general just about mental illness, because October is Mental Illness Awareness Month, which is a strong key in my life. So 1 in 5 Americans will experience mental illness in a given year. 1 in 5 children currently have or will experience mental illness. And 1 in 25 Americans live with mental illness, whether it be depression, anxiety, OCD, schizophrenia, you name it, it's there. 8 million deaths a year from mental illness. 8 million. The problem with this is when you look at me, not right now, but any other given day, usually I'm a very happy, spunky lover of life. I enjoy everything around me and I try to make the best of every situation. So when I go through a phase like this, it's hard for people to understand and it's hard to get the support. And I'm not looking for somebody's sympathy or anything like that, but you wouldn't believe the amount of times, as most of you know, because if you haven't heard me speak before, and I have spoken on this before, OCD is very commonly misunderstood. Most people think I just have to put my shoes in my closet the right way, or I have to tidy up my dishes or do something like that. If you walked in my house, you wouldn't know I had OCD, because that's a little bit of what it is, but that's not what it is. And I'm going to give you a little bit of my story, because right now I'm going through it, and I don't think it's a better time than to explain what I'm going through right now, so you guys can see. Maybe if it's to just bring an awareness to somebody else, or somebody else who might be going through it, who's just scared to reach out because they don't know, or they're afraid somebody will think they're crazy. It's about what it is. So about mid-July, my OCD kicked in really strong again. So I go through phases. I've had it my whole life. I don't know a day without it. I don't know what it's like to live in a normal functioning brain. I have no clue. I wish I did. I've had moments, what they call obsessions and compulsions. You have things that you fear or of not your nature, and you're afraid they'll happen, or that you thought it and it's your character. And so you perform compulsions to get rid of them. You know, whether it be cleaning something, some people have that, turning a light switch on and off so many times, or repeating words in your head, or reassurance, simply just talking to yourself and getting yourself through it. Just talking yourself through a problem is actually a compulsion, because you repetitively do it over and over again and you take it down further and further. So I have what I like to call the 10-year itch, where I go through a very serious bout of anxiety. I don't know if you want to even call it depression. My OCD gets really bad. I had it when I was 14. I saw a therapist. I had it when I was pregnant with my first one 10 years later. And here we are 10 more years later. And mid-July, I just started getting random anxiety attacks for no reason. I felt like I was drowning. I couldn't breathe. I would drive to work and I thought I was going to pass out in my car. I'd work with my clients and I'd catch my breath and I would try to hide it. I had trouble waking up in the morning. To this day, I still do. If you can see, this is about how I am every day right now. I have some good days in between, but not great. I can't sleep. I've got insomnia. I can't breathe half the time. I'm having hot flashes at night. If any women have gone through that. I wake up and not to sound too excruciatingly gross, but I heave in the morning. I can't eat breakfast. I'm lucky to get food in. I've lost weight. Not the best way to do it. This is what disabilities can do to you. This is what I'm going through right now. And there's been moments, unfortunately for me, what this is like is to give a little glimpse on the inside without going too in depth. Because sometimes you don't know who else is going through it, and sometimes you don't know who else is seeking help or scared to seek help. And that's half the reason there's so many deaths a year, because people think they're crazy and they're scared to tell somebody. So for me, what I've been going through in a nutshell is the glorious OCD is the disorder of uncertainty. I don't do well with uncertainty. I kind of have to solve every problem that's put at hand. And if I don't, my brain goes crazy. So the fun part of that is I can take any situation, and I mean any situation, and I can make up an illogical scenario. When I say illogical, I can say that a T-Rex, okay, we all know T-Rex don't exist anymore, right? Despite all the Jurassic Park movies. I can make up in my head right now that there's a T-Rex outside and it's going to come in here and eat me, and I will believe it. I will feel the anxiety and I will cower and shake, because my brain will what if that scenario no matter what. And I can sit here to show you how compulsions work and say, well, dinosaurs went extinct how many years ago, or they don't exist or anything like that. My brain says, just what if? What if somebody did create Jurassic Park? That can't happen. We know. But what if? And I can what if any situation, I can what if any scenario, and I can make it as real as I am standing here. And I can become terrified of things that don't even exist. Things that do exist too. That's the worst part, because I can find anything I want to, and I can make it a problem. And I've managed to do that. And I say that, really, I believe it's Satan in my head working. But when you what if everything, you what if everything, not to get too depressive sounding. So that's where I've been for the last couple months, struggling between the ups and downs, working with God to help me out of this. I've been there, and I know he's done it before, and I know he'll do it again. But I just want to stand here just to give you guys a little example of what it's like, because we know sometimes we have this tendency to see somebody in a wheelchair and go running to help them in the door, or we see somebody with a cane and we want to help them up the stairs. And sometimes when you have a disability, you get attitudes of pity. Sometimes people want to give you sympathy, and not that I'm saying that's negative at all, because that's great. But the problem is we're so quick to help a certain group of people that we see, and then we just let everybody else simmer out there. And we don't really know what everybody's going through. Me and Tia standing here in front of you today, both going through something. And you wouldn't know that just by looking at us. So my big thing is make sure that you reach out to everybody. You never know what somebody's going through. That's why God says to love everybody. Love everybody like they're your sister and your brother, because you don't know. You don't know who's hanging on the edge, who's on their borderline, and what's going on in their life. And as we, both of us sit here today crying, I think God used us for a reason, and Satan's attacking us for a reason. As we stand here explaining to you about disability, number one, be kind to everybody. Number two, if you're going through something, please never, ever be too ashamed to reach out for help, to talk to somebody, no matter how crazy you think you sound, because I promise you, I've made it sound crazier, my poor therapist. there's always somebody there to listen. But just to remember, guys, that we need to not make assumptions about people's disability. That's the big thing for me. Don't make assumptions about what you think somebody's going through or what they aren't going through. My brother also, my whole family has OCD. My brother has Tourette's. If you guys know what Tourette's is, you've seen it before. The most common thing I get asked about him is, oh, does he shout things out? Because that's what we've been shown and that's what we've been taught through TV. But it's a very, very, very minute percentage of people who have copralia, which is Tourette's, where you yell things out. My brother twitches all day long. He shakes his head, he grunts, he blinks, he does all that stuff. And growing up in school, he wasn't treated very well. He was made fun of. But the amount of people that I've talked to who didn't know my brother had Tourette's, and the conversation would just come up, think that people with Tourette's are mentally handicapped, which is another falsehood. Mental illness doesn't mean that you're not a functional human being. Mental illness doesn't mean that you're less off than anybody else. It doesn't mean that you should fall to the wayside because something's wrong with you. We're all God's children, and he loves us and he uses us. And every time I've gone through one of my major downfalls, I praised God after, because it either brought me closer to him or it used me to help somebody else. Now, I'm not saying I enjoyed it all, because this is one of the worst things I've ever been through. But I have to keep remembering, like we said, disability means ability. And somewhere out of this, eventually, when I get to the other side, I'm going to see what God used me for. And I don't know what it is right now, but that's why I said, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, because I can't see the next few minutes in front of me, but God can see my whole life.
I'm not used to being here like this. Been quite some time since I've been here. Today, I want to, just like Chelsea, use myself as an example for my topic for Disabilities Day, with mental health and chronic pain and depression. And the verse I picked was Psalm 73 and 26. And in the NIV, it says, my flesh and my heart may fail. God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. And in the Message version, it says, you're all I want in heaven. You're all I want on earth. And when my skin and my bones are brittle, God is rock firm and faithful. Look, those who left you are falling apart. The deserters will never be heard from again. But I'm in the very presence of God. Oh, how refreshing it is. I've made, Lord God, my home. God, I'm telling the world what you do. If we look in Psalms, a lot of the Psalms are written by David. And twice in Psalms 42, verse 5 and in verse 11, he says, "Why are you down in the dumps, dear soul? Why are you crying the blues? Fix my eyes on God. Soon I'll be praising again. He puts a smile on my face, for he's my God." But in between verse 5 and in verse 11, David questioned, "Why did you leave me, God?" Whatever it was he was going through was so hard and so low that even one who was declared to have a heart like that of God didn't feel him. We don't know whether it was voices that were bothering him as he said the enemy's attack, or whether there were actual physical beings there. All we know is that he was sad, he was alone, and he felt like there was no rescue whatsoever, even from the God who had never left him before. Oftentimes, just like Chelsea said, anxieties and depression can take you sometimes to that point where there's no answers, there's just deserters. And that you feel that even God has deserted you. So what's the point? Sometimes I'm ashamed to say it, but so many times I felt like, what's the point? I don't see where my suffering is benefiting anybody, especially those the closest around me. So what's the point? Why remain? Because if nothing else, at least I won't hurt anymore. In 2018 started my chronic pain issue. I've told this story before. My kids get tired of hearing it. I was in Walmart shopping, and I was picking up a large case of water. And as I was turning to put it in the cart, a lady on a scooter came around the corner just a little too fast, and she hit me square in my back. And she herniated my L3, L4, L5, and broke my coccyx, which I didn't know, but later down the road found out that I had broken my tailbone in childbirth too. And it never re-healed, right? Instead of it healing back in the shape of the letter C, my tailbone looks like a butterfly wing. And it doesn't take much to aggravate the pain. I've gone through physical therapies and numerous medications. But there's nothing that will ever keep the pain away other than surgery. And just like Chelsea, the anxieties and the what ifs of someone cutting near my spine at such a young age, it was hurtful and fearful. Because I have two young, very active girls who've cheered since they were 3, 4, 5 years old. I've been cheer mom on every team. I've been the mom whose their friends come to me because they want to be with me because I'm young and I'm vivacious. And I've been VBS coordinator here, and I've been running around this church since I was 5, and I've never stopped. And I'm always doing something. I'm always here, and I'm there, and I'm working, and I'm this, and I'm that, and I'm this. I can't do nothing. Takes everything in me just to go to work. Life is overwhelming and it can be surmountable. And even in the midst of everyday tasks, it seems so simple to some, just rolling over in bed. To put my feet on the floor requires prayer and a personal pep talk. I do a mental checklist and evaluation of all my body systems from head to toe to see just where I stand on the pain scale. I'm sure I'm not the only one who does this. And I've been told I'm not the only one who's in pain. And I'm not negating anyone else's pain, but what about mine? Once I do muster up strength, both physically and mentally, on my own, it's only God's strong tower that keeps me upright and propelled forward. Psalm 61, 2 and 3 says, from the ends of the earth, I cry to you for help. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the towering rock of safety, for you are my safe refuge and fortress where my enemies cannot reach me. So Lord, help me to turn to you first and to accept the peace and comfort that you are my refuge and that you hand for me each and every day, each and every minute. I feel anxiety so deep that even though in that very moment I may not be in pain, but I'm anticipating when my medication will wear off. So I can't enjoy a single moment, regardless, because I just know something around the corner is going to come. Being that my injury occurred in 2018 and COVID came not long after, it didn't serve me well because it offered me the excuse to stay at home and to stay in bed. I became my own little recluse, my own little turtle. I go inside my shell where it's the safest. I don't have to hear, I don't have to feel. I just sleep. I disconnected from friends. I even disconnected from the people in my own house. Because sometimes it's just too much, whether it's my body or my mind, or both. And most times it's both. I feel like no one understands. I feel like no one cares. I just want to pass time along until time is no more. That's not what I want, but it's what I've got. And then I have the internal mental battle of those two things. I don't want to lay here. I don't want to be in bed. I don't want to hurt. I don't want to stay in this house. I don't want to not do nothing. But I can't help it. So then what do? I'm confused. I don't want my kids to see me like this because this is not the example that I want them to see to grow up to be. To be weak, to not have faith or strength. I look at my mom, absolutely amazing. Because mom she's had sickle cell since birth, but she's been diagnosed with sickle cell since she was 5. Not supposed to live past 10. Not supposed to have me. I'm not even supposed to be here. Yet and still, she's had almost every joint replaced. I call her the bionic woman. But she will get up. She'll move around the house. She'll do what she needs to do. She pushes through. I see the pain that she's in, so I'm not negating it, but I can't mentally muster that same strength. So why? And that's why I say I try to glean wisdom. I try to glean strength from her. I try to say, what, she can do it. Why can't I do it? But the very second that I start to move, Satan comes and says, Just sit down. It's not me. Somebody else will do it. It's okay. Why you pushing yourself too hard? You know, you're gonna hurt in a minute. So just savor the time that you're not. And oftentimes in my weakness, I give in and I sit and I do nothing. And then I mentally torture myself for doing nothing. So it's a cycle. It's a vicious and nasty cycle. When it says chronic pain, chronic means constant. Chronic means unending. And this is truly chronic pain. But I pray that there be a day this side of heaven where my pain's no more. And I don't mean manageable or I can maintain. I mean no more. Because I know it's possible. My prayer to God is, what is it that I need to do in order to achieve that promise that he made? Because he made a promise to all of us, even on the cross, he died for our pain and affliction. And yet I suffer such. So what is it that I must do in order to obtain that promise? And to live that life that he so desires for me? Because I've seen it happen and I know it's possible. And so like Chelsea said, don't forget about those who have fallen by the wayside for whatever reason, because it's not personal grievance. It's not personal choice. It's just circumstance. Reach out to those who you may not know what they're going through. Because depression can push you. It can push you. It just sits and pushes me in the middle of my back all the time. You just do it. Just do it. But I know it's not of God and it's not his desire. And sometimes that's the only thing that holds me. I ask for your prayer. And I ask you to remember, like I said, that he's a strong tower where we can glean safety and strength. Where he can serve as a refuge. And that one day, this side of heaven, I'll be able to be who I used to be. And that my struggle will benefit somebody. Thank you.
I'm gonna really quickly piggyback off of her because as she talks, I remember some things that I can't think to say. Like I said, I've always seen when I go through a trial like this, I've always seen when I come out of it how God's used me, maybe not every way, but I've seen what it's done for me the second time that I really went through my OCD. I formed a relationship with God that I'd never had. I was raised, not really raised, but it was brought up in a Catholic school for a little while, raised to believe in God, but I never really understood the concept of a relationship with God until I met Noel. And being a person of OCD, I question everything. I question everything because uncertainty to me doesn't happen. I need to have an answer for everything. And you know, with God, we don't. There's so much left questionable because we have to have faith. And that didn't sit well with me because Noel will tell you, I asked him when I met him and started going to church here, I asked him everything I could imagine. I think last week we even had the question of whatever our beginning Bible lesson was, talking about how sin could even arise out of Jesus. I've questioned everything. because I needed to know that he was real and he was there. And sometimes you can't always get an answer. And Noel would always tell me, just let God handle it. When you have a brain like mine, unfortunately, people always say to me, stop thinking about it. Stop thinking about it. I have a disorder defined by overthinking. I can't stop thinking. As I stand here, especially when this is really bad, people will catch me go blank and I won't speak. I will be in the middle of the conversation and I can't formulate a thought because I'm in my head. 24/7, whether you're seeing it or not, because you clearly aren't. I am in my head fighting something. Sometimes it's worse than others, and right now it's horrendous. But that's where I am. I can't stop overthinking to the point that it makes me feel like I'm going to lose my mind. My brain actually hurts. It feels like it's going to explode at moments. Wonder if I'm ever going to have an aneurysm because of how much I think. And I realized that the first time I went through this, interestingly enough, what I made up in my head and the questions I had and the illogical thoughts that I was working through, I made it almost impossible. So if you've ever said to me, I'm here to listen and I'm here to talk and I didn't come to you, it's because I made it impossible for me to talk to other people, because I've made scenarios in my head that made me left without any comfort from anyone. So when I'm at my darkest moments, when I'm crying, it hurts so bad. And I want to reach out to hold somebody and ask for comfort. I can do it, yeah, but it doesn't comfort me because of the things that I've made up in my head. I feel completely 100% alone when I'm like this because of the thoughts that I have created. But the first time I went through this and I felt 100% alone is when I realized that I've spent my whole life since I was young with my mom training me to be strong, because she has it too, not like I do, but she understood to a point and she trained me to be strong. And her motto was, it can beat you or you can beat it, to get up and to keep going. And you know what? It was one of the greatest gifts I could have had at the time. And I worked through everything on my own. Keyword, on my own. I didn't know how to give it to anybody else. I didn't know how to step back and leave it in anybody else's hands. And I worked through everything tooth and nail my whole entire life on my own until I realized that God put me in a predicament. And I'm saying God because he allowed this situation for me to grow, where I couldn't turn to anybody. I couldn't ask for reassurance, and I'm not supposed to. That's the worst thing for OCD, but I do because that's what we do. I couldn't ask for reassurance. I couldn't ask for comfort. I couldn't solve the problem on my own. So what was I left with? I had nothing until I realized I had everything. And when I had nothing left, all I could do was break down and cry and talk to God. And I found myself, and this is going to sound stupid, in the shower every day, crying my eyes out and talking to God. Until the relationship between me and him became stronger than anything I've ever imagined. And I had nowhere else to turn but to God. And when I came out of that, and I thought I was ruined, I thought my life was over. Like Tia said, you get a moment, and the further down you go, you look for comfort. And with anxiety, when you have anxiety, it creates more of the thoughts. So unless I'm in a moment where my anxiety and my chemicals aren't even, I will create any thought I can to have anxiety. And when I feel like I've solved it, something else will come in. I can't stop it until my hormone levels or normal or whatever you want to call it, that I can actually start to rationalize things and things aren't foggy. So I thought I had nothing left. I thought my life was over. I thought at 20 some years of age, after having my first child, that was going to be the rest of my life, and everything that I had made up was going to be it. And I couldn't see a way out. I couldn't even imagine how God himself could take away the thoughts I had in my head, until he did. And that left me with the greatest thing I ever had, was a relationship with God. And I was able to use that to help others, friends. I brought other people to him. And I praised him for what he allowed me to go through. And right now, I'm worse off than I was before. And there's moments, like Tia said, and I hate to admit this, especially standing here in church, because this is not what we're here to talk about. I feel lost and broken. But somewhere in the deepest heart of me, I still know that God's got this. And I might not yell it right now. I might yell it up in my head, and I shouldn't admit that, I know, but I do. We have our conversations, and I ask why, and I know we're not supposed to. And I told Noel, I can't imagine how anybody could ever go through a place with seeing everything God's promised them and turn their back on him. But I'm going to tell you right now, I have been to the edge with what I am going through, but I still refuse to give up. And I feel that even more, if you can remember this easiest thing, and this sounds so hard because I can't do it myself, and I know one day I will, is to let go and let God. If anything else fails in your life, stop trying to do it. Stop trying to do it on your own, because you will only make it worse. You are nothing but a human being. Our God sees everything. He knows more than we do. And he knows why we're at where we're at. And the more you try to solve it, the more you try to fix it, chances are you're going to screw it up. Let's be honest. But there's only one being that can carry us when we can't carry ourselves. And that's God.
I am not giving the benediction or the appeal right now, but I just had to say, we have had church today. Sister Tia, you said that I don't want my children to see me here weak, but this is the strongest thing I think I've seen. And Sister Chelsea, you'd said that this is not what church is for. Yes, it is. This is what church is about. We are a hospital for the hurting. We are not a fan club for those who feel happy and whole. And I know this does not mean anything at this point in time. What I'm about to say doesn't mean anything. But you're not alone. Other people have gone through, I'm not saying the same thing. I'm not saying we all understand. But more people in this church are hurting in a similar yet different way. And so I just praise God for you two women today.